just give you a little bit of an outline of how this is going to go tonight. There is a packet that some of you have already kind of perused that is for you, that has all the information in there that you might need tonight. We've got a lot of things going on with Houston Revision. There's a lot of ways for you to get involved. So there's an info card in there. We are looking for mentors for our detention facilities, for our schools, for all kinds of different places, and we need you. So that's our big ask, but there are other opportunities as well, and that's in your packet. If you're interested in pursuing mentoring, just want to lift this up. We're going to be right back here in this space, not in this particular room, but in this church, just down that way in the Smith room, for mentor training next Sunday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So if you are interested in moving forward into the mentorship of Revision, that's the next step for you. There is a background check form in the packet. That is a requirement for all of our volunteers at Houston Revision. You can turn it in to me via email, or you can hand it to me next Sunday when you come back for mentor training. Houston Revision exists really just to come alongside our disconnected youth, people that don't have a lot of social connections. They need us. And this is a very different kind of mentoring experience for people that have a mental picture of what mentoring looks like. Our mentors are non-judgmental, they're active listeners, and they really just want to come alongside our disconnected youth and get them connected again to community. Most of our youth are caught in the juvenile justice system, and that's pretty much where we started. But there's this great big thing called the school to prison pipeline you may be familiar with. We work with kids all along that school to prison pipeline. Kids that are getting in trouble in school, the kids that are getting locked up, the kids that are getting deep into the system and are serving adult sentences. We work with all of those youth because all of those youth matter to us a great deal. Everyone is transformed in this work. We're transformed. The youth are transformed, the community is transformed. It is a win-win, and it's holy work, and we are really blessed to be part of that. So with no further ado, I'm going to ask my fabulous CEO, Charles Rotrammel, coming up now. Is that how we're doing it?
All right, thank you very much, Carrie. So what I'm going to do is sort of walk through the landscape of what Revision does, the world in which we live it, our work is done, and really the reasons why we do it. And after I'm finished, we'll talk about ways that you can connect to that work. So as Carrie mentioned, my name is Charles Rotrammel. I'm the CEO of Houston Revision. We are an organization that is in our 7th year of operation, and we really appreciate you being with us tonight. So we live in difficult times. There's a lot of young people in our community that are not doing well. They're disconnected, they're troubled, they're challenged, they're isolated. And a lot of those young people are living very close to where we live. Unfortunately, there are 700 of them tonight that are locked up right here within the boundaries of Harris County, Texas. 700 young people. We live in an era of mass incarceration, right? Everybody's familiar with this terminology. The United States has 5% of the world's population, but we incarcerate 25% of the world's incarcerated population. That has not always been that way. This is a relatively new problem. In 1972, we were incarcerating, as you can see, about 300,000 people, and now it's 2.3 million people. That's a gigantic spike in the number of people that we incarcerate in this country. They're incarcerated in all kinds of facilities. Many are incarcerated in state prisons. Many are in local jails. Like here in Harris County, there are 10,000 people tonight in the Harris County Jail, right down the street from here. There are a lot of folks in federal prisons and immigration detention facilities, which is a growing number of people in those facilities. They're all over the place, right? Every person who is incarcerated in our country started that journey when they were a young person. And they started that journey when they became disconnected. So there are lots of issues with disconnectedness. Young people become disconnected for a lot of different reasons. A lot of that may have to do with things that happen in their home. A lot of it may have to do with their mental health. A lot of it may have to do with substance abuse. A lot of it may have to do with being the victim of abuse or neglect. But young people, when they become disconnected, share a certain set of traits, right? These are words that we might use to describe them. They're alone, they're deserted, they're isolated, they're abandoned, they're marginalized. They're often vilified, right? Even though they are also often the victims of sexual abuse, physical abuse, other types of crime, we often blame them for the way they behave. And so they're vilified, and many of them have experienced trauma. So these young people are not just the ones that are locked up, but they're also the ones that are walking around every day, and they're carrying this with them. They're carrying with them this sense that I'm going through life alone. I'm going through life without support. And they find themselves in our schools. And unfortunately, our schools don't often serve them very effectively. So Carrie mentioned the school to prison pipeline. Revision's vision statement is to end the school to prison pipeline. You've heard this terminology. Well, Revision works with the kids who are caught in that cycle. And so that cycle begins often in elementary school for young people, when they become suspended or removed from school, removed to alternative schools from which they never return. And a lot of this is codified in language in the Student Code of Conduct. You've all seen Student Codes of Conduct, right? Well, let's take a look at one of those Student Codes of Conduct for a Houston area school district, which shall remain nameless, unless you really want me to tell you. This particular Code of Conduct has my favorite line. I read a lot of Codes of Conduct, and this particular one contains my favorite line because it's so outrageous. No student shall willfully engage in disruptive activity or disrupt a lawful assembly on the property of any public school. Conduct that disrupts educational activities of a school includes, but is not limited to, tardiness, violation of class rules, emission of any intensity of noise that prevents or hinders classroom instruction. Any noise. So what this Code of Conduct allows is for the suspension or removal from school of a young person who emits any sort of noise, right? This is like written, as I always say, this particular Code of Conduct is written as if it were written by your meanest teacher on her worst day. And yet our students are going to schools where these rules are in place, right? And so if you break a rule like that, then you get removed from school. And if you get removed from school, you go into the school to prison pipeline. And so these student code violations often result in court referrals. They result also in an increase in the number of police on our school campuses, which also gives a number of touch points that a young person could find law enforcement. When I went to high school, we did not have police on our school campus. But now, every school, particularly every public school, has, if you go on a school campus, you're going to see police officers, and police officers are going to act the way they're trained to do. So there's an increase in suspensions and referrals, and this has significantly increased racial and ethnic disparities. Dropout rates increase, and juvenile crime rates increase. This pattern, this cycle that we have begun with these harsh discipline policies have led to a large number of kids entering the juvenile justice system. And we're not talking about a small number of kids that are affected by these policies, right? Look at these numbers. So 2 years ago is the last time that we had the numbers. So 2 years ago, there were 1.1 million students enrolled in Region 4 schools. That's the 10-county region that includes Harris County. 1.1 million students. There were 478,000 discipline records. A discipline record is not being sent to the office. A discipline record is a suspension, right? That is a suspension from school or a removal to an alternative school. 478,000 of those, right? Some of those were in-school suspensions, some of those are out-of-school suspensions, some of those are placements in alternative schools. The minority overrepresentation in those numbers is just appalling, right? 19% of students in Region 4 schools are African American, but 43% of the discretionary removals are for African American youth. It's staggering on a national level too. Unfortunately, black students have a much higher rate of risk of being expelled or of facing multiple suspensions. Much higher, as you can see from these numbers. So we're catching young people in this pipeline, and we have a lot of ways, a lot of portals into the pipeline, and then we shove them down the road, and they often end up without any support at all. And this matters because a student who is suspended one time is 68% more likely to drop out of school than a student who has never been suspended. Remember, that's 478,000 students were suspended, and they're going to drop out, right? They're not going to finish school. The system is designed that way. And so what happens? What happens is we lose school connectedness. So the goal here, according to the Center for Disease Control, school connectedness is the #1 public health issue facing adolescents in the 21st century. So school connectedness, according to the Center for Disease Control, looks like this. It's a combination of things. It's adult support, belonging to a positive peer group, commitment to education, and a positive school environment, or what we would call a positive school climate. So those 4 things working together create school connectedness. School connectedness, in turn, creates positive educational outcomes. We would expect that, right? But it also creates positive health outcomes. Kids who exhibit school connectedness have less risky behaviors on every scale of risky behavior than students who are not connected to school. So I'm excited to announce tonight that Revision is beginning a really important and exciting partnership with Houston Independent School District. And we are doing that. This is the first time that we have done that, and we are, in fact, rolling out a new program which is called the LEAD program, which is Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion. We've worked with the City of Houston and the Houston ISD School Police Department and the Houston ISD school, the administration, as well as County Commissioner Rodney Ellis's office. And we have a program that we are putting in place, and we'll start at one middle school because it'll be a pilot. And that one middle school is called Addix Middle School. It's in Sunnyside, which is not hard to get to from here. Last year on that school campus, 41 students were arrested during the school day. And using this program, we've gotten the police department to agree that instead of arresting any students on the school campus, they will refer those students to Revision. And so those students will get our battery of services. And so that's mentoring, as Carrie mentioned. Mentors are our biggest need. We also provide a support group. So we do a therapeutic support group for that same group of students. And then we also provide academic support. So we're in the market for homework help, tutoring as well, because most of these students are academically behind. And then we do community activities with those folks. And so our school-based program is 5 years old, and actually Tisha Wilson, the director of our school-based program, is here. Tisha, would you wave? She's going to be our key person over at Addix. The numbers in our school-based program over those 5 years have been pretty dramatic. We've seen an 18% increase in the attendance rate. 67% of our students have demonstrated a reduction in their discipline records, and 64 out of 65 of those students are still on track to graduate. In fact, we've had our first 2 high school graduates. We'll have a lot more this year. We have our first student in college, and he in fact completed college with straight A's in his first semester and made the dean's list. So these are students. Realize that young man, Chris, when we learned about him, the principal literally told us when he was in 8th grade, Chris is the worst student in this school. She literally said that. And now he's made straight A's on the honor roll in college. And he never entered the juvenile justice system. He never entered the criminal justice system. So that's what's possible here, right? These kids have potential. They have promise. They have dreams and goals and aspirations, and they can achieve those. They need support. They are disconnected, and they need to be reconnected. Now, we won't reach every kid. And so, as Carrie mentioned, we sort of have a broad view of working with young people. And so we also have a partnership, a long-standing partnership, with the Harris County Juvenile Probation Department. Now, we've had a lot of negative publicity about the Juvenile Probation Department in recent days, and I want everybody to understand that the only way that we can reach disconnected youth is by working with them where they are. And unfortunately, there are 700 young people who are incarcerated in our county right now. And those are the kids that need us the most, right? And so we don't have to agree with everything that's done with the system. We don't have to agree that the system is just or that everyone acting in the system is acting appropriately or in the best interests of our community. But that's still where the kids are. And the bulk of those kids, the largest number of kids, are right down the street from here at the Harris County Juvenile Detention Center, which is located at 1200 Congress, San Jacinto and Congress. And that was a facility that was built a few years ago for 205 kids, but there are 245 kids there now. And it's even overcrowded. They've even got some kids sleeping in other buildings outside of that place. So that's the pre-adjudication facility, like the Harris County Jail is for juveniles, right? So kids will go there and they'll stay until they go to court, and then they'll be placed in someplace else. So in the United States, there's a lot of young people that are locked up. There are 34,000 young people that are locked up in the United States that are under the age of 18. And it's important to recognize that the vast majority of those kids have not committed a serious offense. Some of them haven't committed an offense at all, in fact, because there's a lot of ways to get into the juvenile justice system. And the juvenile court judge has broad discretion to lock up people no matter what, just because something, a technical violation of the probation, as you might have read about in the paper, or many other reasons. So there are, once you go to court, there are a lot of options that the judge has. He could send you home on probation. He could throw the charges out and dismiss your case altogether. The majority of those kids, however, do get incarcerated. And they get incarcerated in one of 3 facilities that are in Harris County. So the first of those, and the closest to here, is the Burnett Balin Rehabilitation Center, which is located over 6500 Chimney Rock, just at Chimney Rock and Bel Air Boulevard, essentially. And that is the only all-male facility left in Harris County. The largest increase in the number of people who have been locked up in the juvenile justice system is females, is girls. There's been a 300% increase in the number of girls that have been incarcerated over the last 4 years. So the only all-male facility left is at Burnett Balin. Then the second of those facilities, and the one that Revision actually does the most work at, is the Harris County Leadership Academy, which is out in Katy. And that's now the largest of the facilities, and it has both boys and girls, and there's about 90 young people that are there. And then the third of the facilities is the furthest away, and that is the Harris County Youth Village, which is located down in Seabrook. And that also has both boys and girls, and also has about 90 kids at any one time. These facilities look like this. I always like to show people a slide because some people going into a juvenile facility to mentor have this image in their minds of a group home or a residential treatment center. No, this is Harris County, Texas. There's steel and glass. You're very safe in these facilities, but they're pretty harsh. And as Carrie mentioned, the other piece that Revision does that no one else does, we are the only agency that's ever actually been allowed by the Texas Criminal Justice Department to work with this population, is we work with every certified juvenile in the state of Texas. So state of Texas law allows a juvenile court judge to certify a young person as an adult. And so you would think that this was if kids committed very serious offenses. It's not always the case. Most of those kids actually have not committed very serious offenses, but the judge saw fit for some reason to incarcerate. There are always about 50 of them statewide, and all of those young people are housed in this one particular prison, which is down in Brazoria, Texas, which is called the Clements Unit. It's the second oldest penitentiary in the state of Texas. It was built in 1888. This is actually a picture of the cell block and a young man in his cell. And we are the only agency that is able to work with that particular group of kids. And so we have mentors for those kids, and we also go down and run a church youth group effectively on the first Friday of every month at Clements. We take a group of volunteers down, we take a musician, we take in 35 pizzas. We sit at tables much like this, we have an icebreaker much like this. We do an art project together, we share a message, we pray with them. We really, try to show them that there are people out there that are thinking of them, because that's the problem, right? When you're disconnected and you're locked up, it's easy to be forgotten. It's easy for people to not remember who you are, or not know your name, or not pay attention to you. And Revision is all about trying to prevent that from happening, right? Because we know where that leads. If you're disconnected, whether it's in school or whether it's in a juvenile facility or whether it's in an adult prison, because you're a juvenile and serving time in an adult prison, that school to prison pipeline doesn't end at the prison. It goes beyond that, right? It ends with you becoming a dropout, or you becoming homeless, or you becoming addicted to a substance, or you becoming unemployed. It leads back to prison in this endless cycle of going to prison. And it also leads to suicide. The highest rate of suicide in our city is actually among young people who have aged out of both the juvenile justice and the child welfare systems. That's the highest rate of suicide. And so Revision ultimately is about building connections, right? We're about building those connections, building that human capital for these young people who do not have that human capital. And it's not rocket science. What we're trying to do is to introduce into the lives of young people a caring adult. A caring adult who will show up and pay attention. That's really your mandate as a mentor for Houston Revision. It's not a really complicated mandate, right? The mandate is show up and pay attention. And if you do that, then things are going to transform. They're going to transform for the young person that you're in the room with, but they're also going to transform for you, because you're going to understand the world in a different way. You're going to understand God's call in your life in a different way. You're going to understand building connections in a different way. So Revision's work we have a formula that we like to see put into place, and we've been using this formula for a long time, and it's sort of a three-part formula, and that three-part formula is mentoring, case management, and positive activities. Mentoring, case management, and positive activities. So in addition to our 400 mentors that we have across all the different church communities that we partner with, and all the different facilities that we operate in, and all the schools that we go in, we also have a professional set of case managers. And one of them is here with us today. Joe Trevino, would you stand up? We call them outreach workers. This is Joe. He's one of our outreach workers. So They work with that same group of kids once they are released from the facilities to help them re-enter society and to try to build connections for them and try to make sure that they don't go back to the places that they've been. And then we do a lot of positive activities. So we have a soccer team. You might have heard about our soccer team. It's made up of refugee youth. We have a softball program. We play softball and now basketball actually on Tuesday nights. Our largest activity takes place at our headquarters on the Gethsemane campus of St. Luke's United Methodist Church on Thursday nights, and we do breakdancing, as you saw some of our breakdancers come tonight, and a lot of other things happen too on that night. But connecting kids to positive activities, connecting them to case managers, and connecting them to mentoring, those are the connections, right? So it's not just one connection, it's multiple connections. And so all of a sudden, a young man or a young woman can go from having almost no one caring about them to having a group of people caring about them, including some of their peers caring about them. And that transforms lives. That transforms everything about them. They can carry themselves with pride, whereas before they might have felt shame. And here's a testimonial from one of our young people. He said this: "I was in hell. The world was too big. I did not have anybody to talk to. Revision turned my life upside down. Now I don't hang out with my homeboys anymore. Now I've changed what I wear and what I say. Now I want to go to college for criminal justice. Revision is my motivation." So that's the kind of thing. We always say, I always say this: Revision doesn't change lives. The young people themselves have the potential within them to change their life. All we're doing is building connections with them that can help them to unlock that potential. And then they make the choices. No young person wants to be in a gang. No young person wants to be addicted to substances. No young person wants to be living on the street. They end up that way, not by choice, but by circumstance. And we can help. We have the resources because we have the ability to build relationships with other people to change that. And that's really what we call kinship.